Well, welcome to At the Heart of It, where we talk about life, celebrate creativity, champion entrepreneurship, and get to the heart of the why behind what we do. I'm your host, Bryton Udy, and today I am joined by somebody that I am so grateful I get to call a friend. Not only is he a very successful artist, songwriter, performer, but also farmer and entrepreneur. So I am so excited. Ty, thank you so much for being with me here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Bryton. That was like the nicest intro I've ever had. So, although
I'm sure that's not the case.
A farmer, that's a stretch. I've been on a farm. It's part of the identity,
Hey, I have seen you farming. You have sent me Snapchats and images, I think, belting some Leaving Thomas songs in the combine. So I think that constitutes you being a farmer, which I love.
Just kiss about it, man. Just where it's at.
Yeah, just kiss about it. I love it. I was actually trying to think about this yesterday, was where we first actually met. The two meetings or crossing of paths that I remember having was one at the CCMAs. I think it would have been in Hamilton.
You're wearing
and the other was in White Horse.
Blue suit. Yes. I remember.
Yes.
like the best dressed guy here. And then you came up and it was just like immediate I don't know. It was so cool I was there. And then at at the concert, you and
I think it was White Horse.
White Court.
White Court.
Court. Not horse. Court. Yes.
Yes.
You were like doing a whole like Whitney Houston get up with Annika, and I was like,
yes.
Yeah. Like you had moves.
That's a stretch for me. It was Annika that was the one that choreographed the dance, and I just went along with it. So
I love it.
Yeah, but it was really interesting how I think, I was super appreciative that you just like reached out and was like, hey, would love to continue to like chat, and kind of came out of nowhere. And I'm super grateful that we've been able to have, hour and a half, 2 hour long chats over the last, few months. And it's been so great, especially during this time with COVID and everything, being able to just chat with somebody about life. I mean, I feel like those conversations are few and far between right now, and those have definitely been great for me, and that's honestly exactly why I wanted to have you on as the first guest of At the Heart of It. So I'm excited to dig into those conversations a little bit more. But before we get started, I guess for anybody who doesn't know you, you're lead singer of the Hunter Brothers, which you're in the band with your brothers, which is amazing. Why don't you kind of share a little bit about, the musical journey and building your star, and also being able to share that with your brothers. What has that been like?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. Thank you very much for having me as your first guest. I just want to say too, in response to what you had to say, it has been amazing being able to share a friendship where we can pick up exactly where we left off and talk about whatever with no filter. Yeah. And I've always appreciated that we've always had a mutual respect for one another. So I was very excited to join you today. I think when it comes to the music journey, music has just been part of my DNA. Literally was born into it. There's video footage of my mom pregnant with me on stage. So I was not born on the stage, but I was basically born in music.
Pretty close.
Yeah. No, it was very close, about as close as you can get. And, we have footage of me in these little moments where I would introduce the entire family because you didn't want me singing into a microphone. And if they didn't give me the mic, I would sit in the back and make faces at the crowd. And I'm pretty sure they were watching me at that point and not the rest of the group. But so it was just something that I grew up with. Every summer we would travel to about 8 different festivals. Every single weekend we would do the Southern Gospel circuits, primarily in Western Canada, some into the States. Everybody would play hockey in the winter time, so the guys played at various levels. My oldest brother JJ went as far as playing exhibition games with the Edmonton Oilers. And so it was kind of this crazy lifestyle where we would play hockey in the winter, farm, put the crop in the ground. In spring, I was going to school, obviously, at that time. And then everybody would pile into our massive two-toned van and travel to all these different festivals all over Western Canada. And so there was definitely a premium put on time usage for us as kids. It was important to our parents that we utilized every minute of every day. Dad had us memorize a poem called "Life is Just a Minute." I'll actually say it because it's still
go for it.
In my mind. So life is just a minute, only 60 seconds in it, forced upon you, can't receive it, didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to you to use it. You must suffer if you lose it, give an account if you abuse it, just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it. So that was like what we were all taught as kids. And we lived, this crazy lifestyle. I don't regret being busy as a kid. I think there were certain experiences where maybe we didn't, get to do some of the things that our friends were doing. But at the same time, I'm very, very grateful for parents who are traveling with 7 different hockey teams with 5 kids at one time. I honestly don't know how they did it. I have 2 girls of my own right now, and I have no idea how they facilitated that schedule. So then music just kind of continued to morph and change. We had reached a point where we were singing with some amazing groups in the gospel realm. We performed on NQC National Quartet Convention in Louisville, Kentucky, which is probably the biggest festival for Southern Gospel in the States. It was a convention, and we were one of 2 Canadian groups who were honored to be able to perform on the main stage. And we just kind of felt in our hearts as brothers that we wanted to start singing to a younger demographic. We were singing to people who were typically, I would say, 50 years and older. And we just kind of thought, hey, we kind of want to sing to people that are more in our age group. Not that we minded that, it was just kind of a shift in our heart. And so we kind of went through a few genre changes and ultimately wound up in country, which makes total sense with the farming background, with the hockey background, with the small town background. And when we released Born and Raised to radio, it was just like everybody latched onto the story, and it was like it all just kind of made sense because we had to find a genre too where the harmonies could come out in the way that we wanted them to. And there were definitely some struggles getting to that point. I'm sure we'll dive into that, but it wasn't an easy road to arrive where we're at today, that's for sure. As you know, the music industry is one of the most, crazy industries, farming and music, and the fact that we did both of them at the same time means that we're just crazy because it is so unpredictable. But yeah, that was kind of just kind of a generic pathway of the journey. And when I was little, they used to mark on the paper that my mic had to be on or off for specific songs. So if it was a song that I had a solo in, they would turn my mic on. And if it was a song that I did not have a part to play in, then my mic was muted. And I think after a while, I was just like, no, I want to sing all the time. And so
quit turning my mic on.
I think I was like, youngest brother situation. I was like, I've just worked my way to the front. And eventually they realized that I was probably the most passionate about performing itself. And so I just wound up being the lead singer, but all 5 of us are still in the band. All of us actually have different vocal registers, which is also crazy. Our mom taught us how to sing harmony as little kids, and Dusty sings way up in the stratosphere all the way down to Brock, who sings the bass. So we have 5 parts oftentimes when we're singing live. And nobody had to arm wrestle over their instruments. Everybody picked a different one. So,
that's what I think is so fascinating, though, is that you just have a full band, like, naturally. And I was going to ask that. Was there ever, a conversation of, okay, Luke, you have to play the bass because we need a bass player? Like, was that ever a conversation, or did it just naturally happen that way?
No, I think it just kind of fell into place. We all started on piano. Our mom was really good at playing by ear, but she really wanted to give us the best chance that we could have. Like, she sacrificed a lot of her dreams so that we could do music. I mean, both our parents really, but she really wanted us to learn the technicalities of music. And so she put us in piano lessons right from little. I started when I was 5. I remember begging to be in piano because all my other brothers were doing it. So we used that as the base foundation. foundation, and then everybody branched off to their respective instruments. Dusty to drums, JJ to acoustic, Brock to electric, Luke to bass. I stuck to the piano. Tried mandolin for a brief period of time because I wanted to transfer into fiddle. Didn't pursue that as far as I probably could have, and just wound up that, you know, performing was the thing that I love doing. So my mic stand is many times my instrument.
There you go. That I love that. It's funny. I was spending a little bit of time doing just a little bit more research on your journey with the Hunter brothers and everything.
Uh-oh.
And I came across a video of, I think it was Dusty that auditioned for Canadian Idol.
Yes, he did.
And I just see, you couldn't have been more than like 9. I don't know how old you are, but there's this little clip of you just sitting at the dinner table, and I think it's Luke,
Eating
JJ,
soup,
and Dusty.
Right? It's like that
Yes.
was
Yeah.
my cameo on television. Natural lifestyle shot of the younger brother.
Yeah, no kidding. Which is where I'm going. Is I'm curious. I'm the oldest of 3, so I can't imagine being the youngest of 5. I have no comprehension of what that experience is like. But what was that like, having 4 older brothers to look up to and see the journey that they're going on, and what type of motivation was that for you growing up?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think being a youngest child has a very specific vantage point, as does being an oldest sibling or a middle child. And that's something I'm really understanding the more I walk through life. I love studying personality types, and I love learning about people's stories and their narratives and their whys in many ways. But something that I've noticed as I've just, done a lot of research, or actually it hasn't been intentionally doing research so much as it has been just having conversations with fellow youngest siblings, and some of the language that they'll use, or some of the things that, are easy for them or don't come as naturally to them, are as a result of being the youngest sibling. So it has those challenges. But in my case, being able to look up to 4 older siblings, I don't know where I'd be if I didn't have them, honestly. Like, I just respect them all for so many different reasons. They're stand-up guys, and it's interesting because we will have conversations, and sometimes you really have to figure out what the other person is saying. It's been a process. 28 years. I'm 28 years old, and there's still things where I'm trying to figure out and understand where my brothers are coming from. But if you take enough time, you'll eventually get to this place where you realize that both of you have equal contributions to offer. It's just different. And so those differences can really be unifying at the end of the day. And that's really the approach that we've taken as a group, is how do we take our differences and apply them in ways that will make us stronger at the end of the day, because one person's thinking of the harmonies, and the next person's thinking of the show, and the next person is thinking of the little details. So that's on a musical front, but then just in life in general, where one person will come at things from a little more empathetic standpoint, somebody else is a little more practical, somebody else, JJ, oldest brother, make sure that the rails, don't fall off altogether. So I think being a youngest sibling just has those opportunities to look at the things that your older siblings have done positively, and things that maybe you don't want to do so much.
Right.
And then you just, you have like 4 additional mentors in multitudes of ways. So I'm very grateful for the upbringing I had. I was quite a bit younger than all of my siblings. I'm 13 years younger than JJ, and I am almost 6 years younger than Brock, who is the second youngest. So in some ways, I was kind of like an only child. So I did have a lot of independence, in certain seasons of my life. And so, it was interesting for sure. But I was like the leftovers, just the old
the leftovers,
the old egg.
There you go. Well, I'm curious. I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what is the dynamic like working with your family so closely? And I mean, this is, and I think we'll get to the coffee shop in a little bit, because I love your story behind that. But you are in a band with all of your brothers. You farm with your brothers and your family. Then you're also in business with your wife, with Lizzie, with a coffee shop. And I love how interconnected your personal and professional lives are. And I think it's really, really inspiring, but I would love to hear how you navigate some of those relationships or, complexities or arguments or disagreements through different things. Because obviously family, you handle differently than other people. I can tell you that for free right now, but how do you kind of navigate some of those times?
3 words: trial and error. That is the summation of it. Don't by any means have it figured out, that's for sure. Communication is obviously just key, and it's a lifelong experience. I'm learning that more and more and more and more. In my marriage, it's just something where you come to the table with different vantage points, and you just have to take enough time to be able to hear the other person. Have patience, obviously, because it's just, decisions don't need to always be made right away. And then there's other things that do need to happen, quicker. So you have to just figure out, because I'll give you a prime example. Dusty took 5 years to decide that he wanted to marry Suzanne. I took 1 year to decide I was going to marry Lizzie. So that alone, kind of tells you that there's a difference in our thought process, and there's pros and cons to both. I think one of the unique parts about family is just when it's in your blood, you are so interconnected in ways that are just not really explainable. Like, we will show up to a video shoot and 4 of the 5 of us will be wearing maroon. And it's like, would any of us wear maroon typically? And then we'll show up to the video shoot not having talked about it, and 4 of us will wear the same color. And it's weird how many times we would show up to shows without talking about what we were even going to wear, and we would be all color coordinated, or maybe not all wearing the same color, but it all just worked. And so I think there's just this intrinsic feeling you have inside that, this person might be feeling this way, and this person might be feeling this way. So you start getting, I think, better and better at anticipating both the needs and the situations in advance. And then if you don't understand, then you just got to talk through it. You just hash through it. So I think it's just, growing in communication more and more and more.
Right. And I mean, you talked a little bit about personality, not tests, but, we have talked about the Enneagram before. And have you gone through that with your, but have you gone through that with your brothers at all? Is that almost like a language of understanding everybody's personality? Do you use that in that way? The Enneagram?
I definitely use it as a filter, for sure.
Okay.
I feel like I went through a season where I was like, guys, we all need to do this because it changes your world. It has been the number one tool in my relationship with my wife. Just being able to understand and have that empathy for the other person. What I love about the Enneagram is that it creates a sphere of compassion, and it helps you understand what your shadow spots and what you're not good at. And that's humbling, but it's important to ultimately grow. Because sometimes I've noticed that certain tests, they focus on, all the flowery parts, and it's that's great. That's awesome. We need to focus on the strengths, but we also need to check in with our weaknesses, because those are the things that are going to pull a group apart at the end of the day. The weaknesses are going to pull any organization apart if you cannot understand how you operate out of your weakness and your fellow worker or brother. So that's what I love about that system. For any of you who are interested in the Enneagram, check it out because it's very helpful. So I know that we've gone through certain things. Certain bros have maybe jumped into a little more than others, but I'm pretty sure Dusty's a 1, which is the perfectionist. I'm a 2, which is the helper. JJ's a 3, which is the achiever. Luke is a 6, which is the loyalist, and Brock doesn't like personality tests because he doesn't want to be put in a box, so I'm pretty sure he's a 4. But I also think there's a good chance he's a 5 with a 4 wing because he's a mechanical genius, and so he pulls everything apart. So
interesting.
I think he's a 5 with a strong 4 wing, but that's my interpretation. You're not supposed to type people, so I just went against the grain of the wisdom of the Enneagram. But yes, I do run things through that filter, and it gives you that added level of grace where you're like, right, this brother, it takes him longer to process this, or this brother's probably thinking this, and lots of times it's right, sometimes it's not. So We were told by our dad growing up that assumptions will ruin relationships. So that is like a key thing. Don't assume and live in assumption because it will wreck you.
Your dad sounds like a wise man.
He is. He's crazy. He was a figure skater, and so he was a showman. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. No.
Yeah. He was one of the first, I think he was the second or third person in the world to attempt a backflip on ice. So he used to do it over a barrel. Or maybe it was the second or third to do it over a barrel. I don't know. Maybe he was the only one. I have no idea. But it's some crazy statistic like that, which just suggests that he's crazy and awesome. But he was a figure skater, showman, and then he met when him and my mom met. My mom thought that they were going to go on the ice show and travel around the world, and she had prayed very specifically she would not wind up in Saskatchewan, and she wound up in Saskatchewan, married to a farmer. And so she often says that God has a sense of humor. So my dad has a lot of unexpected twists and turns that kind of come out of his story.
Yeah, that's amazing. Also, I love that poem. Like, I'm going to have to like print that out and post it somewhere. It's a great one.
It's a gooder. It's a gooder.
Absolutely. I want to kind of change gears a little bit. We talked a little bit about the music and family and your brother, but one of my favorite things that you and I have talked about is your experience opening the coffee shop in Shaunavon, Saskatchewan. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there was no other kind of like boutique cafe around in the town, right? And you went, I think this is a great opportunity. But for me, I think what was really interesting and kind of the whole essence of the podcast is the why. And for you, that was community and being able to build community and have a place for people to gather. And also, I love your story of being able for you to give young artists in the community a platform to grow and perform and stuff like that. Can you speak to, the decision and the road to the decision of kind of moving forward and opening the cafe and what that's been like and that journey's been like with you and Lizzie?
Yeah, 100%. Well, it's been one of the best decisions I think that we've ever made. I am so grateful for that space, and thank you for the conversations that you and I have had. You've really encouraged and advocated for, the different dreams that I've talked to you about in our conversation. You've just been a bright spot, for lack of a better word, in my life in that way, so thank you. It was an endeavor that we started in 2017 in December. My wife had approached me. Her name is Lizzie. She is a firecracker filled with passion. She's an entrepreneur. She's an artist. She's a dreamer. Two dreamers married each other, which is a crazy dynamic, let me tell you. But totally awesome. So she approached me as I was on the field one night in a tractor, and she was like, look, I think that this is the best time in my life to open up a cafe. This has been my dream. We have one kid. I don't think there's ever going to be a better time. Like, let's step out on it. And there was a building in town that she had her eyes on that was it was filled at the time, but she said if it ever comes available, that's where I'd love to start it. And so we started the cafe like a month or two later, and just dove in because it became available like a few days. Actually, it was the day after she made that statement.
It's crazy how that works, though. Hey?
Yeah.
Like you put it out in the universe, and it's like, oh, you want this? Okay.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you learn to not underestimate those little nudges that go on inside. And so for me, it was really important in my relationship that I advocate for the things of my partner as much as I do the dreams, in my own life and heart, because that to me is what equality is about. There's so much more than that, but that's one component, is that, it's not just my life anymore. It's this person who I'm living with, and their dreams are just as important as mine. And so in being two dreamers, it was really important for us to figure out how is this dynamic going to work as a national music career was unfolding. She had to sacrifice a lot, and so you hope to reciprocate that in ways. So starting a cafe in the midst of that was a crazy decision, but I'm very grateful that we did. We joined in with other business partners and launched a space. There wasn't a cafe that was like what we created in our town at the time. There was a local restaurant, still is there today, called the Harvest Eatery. It's one of the best restaurants I've ever eaten at, and we have it in our small town in Saskatchewan, and it really gave a cultured experience for us in a community of 1,800 people. And it kind of, I think, gave young entrepreneurs that energy and excitement to dream and to bring what they were excited about to the community. And so we opened up the cafe, and it went very well for a couple of years. It was very busy being on the road and managing that. Our business partners definitely filled in the gaps when we were gone. Lizzie and her business partner, whose name is Megan, both went through pregnancies at one point within the process. And so just figuring out all of the dynamics of that was super cool. And then when COVID hit, we were faced with a whole new set of circumstances, because how do you keep a small business running, and B, it's coffee. Like, you can't run it around and still have it hot and taste what it needs to by the time it gets to somebody's doorstep. So you can't do the skip the dishes thing with coffee very easily. And so we were confronted with a decision: do we keep going or do we stop? And we talked about it, we thought about it, we considered all of the different, pros and cons, and weighed it out. And I just felt in my gut, I was like, I don't feel like we've come this far to just stop. I feel like that it just doesn't feel right in my spirit. And so Lizzie said, she's like, I feel like I've done what I need to do up to this point. If it closed, I feel like I lived out what I needed to. But I was not so convinced that we needed to close at that point. So it was really interesting how things kind of just came together at that point to potentially open something new. So we had our eyes on another space in the community that we felt would help us expand. And we realized that the only way that we were going to make this work is if we sold more than coffee, because people had bought into it, but we needed more options. So with our head barista's passion for coffee, Lizzie's passion for not only coffee, but the environment it creates, and the boutique side of things kind of became an option, where she was like, I'd really love to curate boutique items, both home and women's clothing and baby items that people can shop and have a coffee. So she brought that to the table. And I was like, well, my heart is for young artists in our community, because growing up, we just didn't have a whole lot of options. And so we put a little stage in the back of the cafe. We haven't been able to run a whole lot of events up to this point, but that we saw that as being an opportunity to really build community for our young artists. And then we have our local restaurant, Harvest. There's multiple of them, but that specific restaurant that we love so much, we decided to partner with and do their lunches in and through the cafe space. And so they were very gracious to give us their panini press and a lot of their lunch items. So we partnered with them. We partnered with another business in town. And it just ended up being this, collective experience where a bunch of people's passions came together in one project. And what we've seen is that it's completely revolutionized the way that we think, the way that we approach business. Collaboration is so key moving forward, that you're not viewing people as competition, but you're viewing, how do we collaborate to build community? And in the sense for community with unity, like what that means is that we do this together. And so it's just been so fulfilling in not being able to play shows in the last year. I will just go into Meeting Grounds. That's the name of the coffee house. If I'm having a bad day, because my people are there. It's a space that we renovated in 2 weeks and flipped the space around, and just a group of people came together because they believed in it. And what I said to people this last year, I said, we are selling coffee. We believe in selling a high quality product. We sell Phil and Sebastian beans, which, you're familiar with. I had
Calgary,
a nice coffee over Phil and Seb coffee a while back. But more than that, I really believe that what we were selling this last year was connection, because we had limited capacity in how we were able to gather, but we worked within the guidelines to figure out a way that we could still create that connection in creative and innovative ways. And so I don't think we were just a wants business this last year. I think we were a needs business.
Right.
So I think the why is exactly that. It's connection, it's community, it's art, We now have all of our baristas have their own contribution to the store. One of them has started doing charcoal art. And so when he comes into the store, he will bring, one or two new pieces of charcoal art and hang them up. And people are just floored at how gifted he is at, art and painting. And so we're a bunch of creatives that have come together, and we're trying to continue to fuel our passions and find ways to allow the passion to fuel the profit and not be stuck in work that we're, really wishing that we weren't a part of. But when all of you work together, that's how you can accomplish those things. You can expedite the process.
Right. And what's the size of the community around Shaunavon?
Well, Shaunavon is about 1,800 people, and then there's a bunch of surrounding towns. So the southwest corner, I don't know exactly what that number would be. We have surrounding towns like East End and Maple Creek and Frontier, and so it's a little bit bigger than that when you accumulate all the people in the area. But 1,800 people live in the town,
which is what I love so much about taking that leap and opening the coffee shop. It's not quite like opening something in Calgary or Toronto or Vancouver where you have 1 million plus people that could be potential customers, right?
That's right.
You are really relying on the people that you're surrounded by, and if you don't focus on community, to me, I don't see a way to succeed in that way, right? Because like you said, you are selling more than just coffee. You're selling connection and a place to connect. And I also love, and I'd love for you to kind of speak on this too, is you touched on it, but being able to provide a platform for local artists too. I can't wait till Kimberly and I can come there and actually see it in person, but I loved the virtual tour you gave me last week of just the little stage in the corner where, that's where, I started was in a coffee shop pretty much just playing songs that I learned, and it was a place to perform, and it, and for that to be hosted by somebody who's living the dream that so many young musicians have is amazing to me. And I give you props for making that such a core piece of what you're doing. But do you mind just speaking to that a little bit more and how important that is to the project as a whole?
No, not at all. That's the area that I'm probably most passionate about within the business. And I think the key component to that aspect was just that we didn't have a lot of ways to facilitate artists in our community. We have so many ways to engage with leisure and with sports. Haley Wickenheiser is from Shaunavon, and so one of the greatest female hockey players of all time. And so our rink is called the Wickenheiser Center. We have Braden Coburn came out of our pocket of the province. We have all sorts of people that have actually come from Shaunavon who have gone on to do great things within their fields of work. But I just was looking at our town, and I was like, we don't have a lot for artists, because I lived that story. Like when I was growing up, I had so many unbelievable opportunities, and we did have piano teachers in the area, but it was just limited. We just had limited access, limited resources to do that type of thing. So in walking through that process, well, actually one thing I was able to do was SPS Idol. It was a singing competition when I was in grade 6. A couple of the teachers in our elementary school gave us that opportunity, and that's probably a huge part of why I was so passionate about performing. It was in my DNA, but that was, just something that could facilitate that for a few months of my life, and I loved it. So I was like, how do I reach the kids that are like me that are in this community? And I think that's the key, is like, who's the audience at the end of the day? Who are you gonna serve, and who are you going to give your gifts and abilities to? And I was like, it's the young artists, because that's who I am. And so in this community, I was like, okay, we don't have a lot of opportunity for young artists to be able to steward their craft. And so I think it was just really important to help move that process along. But something I didn't want to do was just kind of sweep in and, all of a sudden be like, okay, this is what we're doing. There were lots of people who were feeling the same way that I was. That's what I started realizing. So I started just having coffee with people who were like-minded, where they were like, we need to engage our community this way. And so we just, and it's so interesting because it's a fruit bowl of people. Like, we are like that proverbial salad bowl of people who have come together and realized that we all share this same passion. And so we're actually going to be hosting an art camp later on in the summer together with workshops for the kids and everything. And as soon as we're able to open up the stage side of things, we're going to be having poetry nights and musician nights. So I'll be helping coach some of those kids in their talents and give them a place for them to perform. And we had a few of those nights in our other space, but we didn't have an official stage for it. And so that's something we wanted to implement in this area. And what was also really important is that some people love to do music and art as a hobby, and that's totally fine. But there's some people who deep down really want to pursue art and music and poetry and whatever craft or ability it is, and be able to monetize that. Mm-hmm. And quite often in small communities, music would come for free, which is fine because lots of times artists will do things that they are passionate
for exposure. Getting paid for exposure, yeah.
But you wouldn't ask a restaurant to cater a meal for free. Like, you wouldn't ask, anybody with their business to just do something for free, typically speaking, right? And I started realizing, I'm like, we're kind of doing this to ourselves sometimes and not creating a space that we can monetize for these local artists, so that, even if there's only 2 of them in the community that want to pursue it on a larger scale, we need to create platforms as a community that says, you're just as important as everybody else who belongs here, whether it's oil and agriculture and everything that's in this town. Artists have that unique ability to bring people together, and that ticket's worth something at the end of the day. And it's those 10,000 hours that have gone into that passion. And so that's a huge heart behind it as well, is being able to put a ticket price on these young kids who have these abilities, help coach them and get them to a place where they can put a show on, and just say, hey, we see you.
Totally, which I love. I think I share a very similar experience with you of having kind of that talent competition in some platforms in order to go out and perform and just try things, whether it was like musicals or talent competitions at the Calgary Stampede, which this is a whole nother thing. They've defunded that program at the Calgary Stampede Talent Search. And it's devastating in the way that it gives the opportunity for people to find out, who they are, and also grow the passion that they have. I competed in that for 5 years and then was on the committee for 5 years after that because I believed in it so much. And it's amazing having that opportunity, especially in a community, like you said, that doesn't have a lot of opportunity for outlets like that. Which is amazing.
That's incredible.
To backpedal a slight bit.
Yeah.
While we're on the why, no, it's all good. It's all good.
Play some of this, but
yeah, no. It's all gold. It's all gold. But it's just because we're on the track of the why.
Yeah.
And another why that I thought was really interesting that you shared with me was, for you, the why behind farming and providing food and the, being able to, if there was opportunity for philanthropic activities, or, if the Hunter brothers were to open a foundation, that, food would be such a big piece of that. Can you speak to that side of things a little bit more? I know you were saying it's like last year, I think you guys did chickpeas. Or something. You're just like, it's just chickpeas, but what it actually provides and where it comes from. It's like that for me as a city kid was such a new thing to really consider, because I hadn't really known anybody that farmed. But to hear you kind of talk about that story and the why, to me was super fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. I never was super passionate about farming. It's never, music makes me feel a different way than plants do, for sure. But it's what I've seen is so incredible, because I've been able to have this exposure to this farming operation. Lots of times I think that Saskatchewan and the agriculture community, there's a certain rap that it has where it's like, oh, there's nothing there. And it's like, there's so much, just in the natural beauty in terms of the wide open spaces, thanks to the chicks. It's one of my favorite songs growing up. But when you go outside and whether it's the northern lights that come out or the stars or the wide, vast expanse of sky, it's incredible. It has its own beauty for sure, and you can breathe out here, you can think out here. There's new waves of creativity that hit you, and when you're singing about a back road in a country song, you know exactly what back road you're singing about, and you know exactly what field you're thinking of and what experience you had, and those things are really sacred. So I think sometimes there's aspects that really get glossed over, or even just the fact where sometimes for farmers it's like, oh, you're a farmer, like what else? It's like that's it. And it's like, farmers are typically not the types of people to go out there and try and say, hey, I'm like a really big deal, on social media, right? They're out hitting their heads under, big things of steel and putting crop in the ground and learning new technology. That's something else. Like some of the technology involved in farming nowadays is advanced as, a lot of other industries. It's incredible. When you're having to learn new systems every year, like the monitor that I had to learn this year, in work was completely different from the year before. And so it's really cool to see the advancements that have happened in agriculture. And I think that sometimes, the voice of farmers can get lost in the mix of things. And I think it's really important just to see that even though it's not my passion, I'm so thankful that I've had a front row seat to my dad's passion and my brother's within that. And I mean, it's taught a work ethic, but furthermore, you're playing a part in helping feed the world. And that is something where all of us eat food, every single one of us. That's something that is unifying for all of humanity. And so just being able to have a small piece to play in that is like, that's a huge part of the why. Is, in the back of your mind, that this is going from your fields to a table and helping people survive, right? And take that next step. And so the more that we can help in that capacity, the more we want to do, and I think it's just obviously very important. It's been really cool on the music front. I was a couple years ago, we went out to Ontario and we played at a New Holland trade show booth. And there were probably like 1,000 people that showed up in the field that day just for a little acoustic performance. And what we realized is, this is a huge connection point with all of these people who love agriculture, but who want to connect with a musical act that is singing about the experiences that they legitimately have in the field and on the farm. And so I think, once again, it comes back to the audience. It comes back to the why. And that why is synonymous with a lot of other people. So I think it's just a really cool narrative to be able to be a part of and to be able to share that with fellow farmers, but also to people like yourself who just find it fascinating.
Yeah. Again, for me, and this has kind of been a string throughout this whole conversation, is authenticity too. And like, I don't even think the word has really come up, but that's also something that I love about your music and your brand as a whole, especially within the music world and entertainment as a whole. It is so easy to lose sight of who you are when you're trying to chase recognition, and we kind of went through it. We were very conscious of it within Leaving Thomas to try and be true to who we were and be authentic and leverage our personalities and that kind of spill into our music. And it just is hard when you want to build a career, because you need to connect with people. And you know, if you're trying to chase something that somebody else is doing, it may come across as inauthentic or disingenuous, and it just doesn't ring true. But it's something that I love about what you and your brothers have been able to do with your music is, and honestly, I've heard your manager, Ron Kitchener, also say this, is that it's, you know, you're the most genuine act that you will ever see, because you're singing about things that you actually care about. You're singing about things that are actually a part of your life. And you carry that through everything that you do, which is amazing. And I mean, even down to the, you know, Hard Dirt for me was so timely when you released it, and personally is my favorite song that you have released. And I'd love to hear the story behind that, because it ties in the farming, it ties in music, you know, but it ties in the times that we were in. Yeah, like speak to the story of that song.
Wow, yeah, and thank you for your kind words. Like, that a lot. I appreciate that, Bryton. And to speak to your group, I felt the same way about you and Annika with Leaving Thomas. I could just tell that there was this genuine passion behind what you did. And I remember seeing, you know, in some article how it said, you know, friendship was one of the key components. And you two were, you know, different people, but you could tell that you genuinely, you know, exercise that in whatever you did, whether it was your social presence or on the stage. So I just, right back at you, I loved watching those components just unfold so naturally. So you guys had discovered your why like early on, and it carried through. So yeah, Hard Dirt is also one of my favorite songs to date that we've ever been able to put out. I think it just checked all of the boxes for all of us on so many levels. Because, you know, Hard Dirt is, it paints a picture right away. And in saying I grow better in hard dirt, you know, obviously that's not the case if it's hard for too long. It does need rain, and it needs wind, and it needs, you know, moisture in order for a seed to grow. And that process is so fascinating to watch. There are so many parallels between seeds in the field and human beings. And that was like the parallel that was drawn in this song, is that when we go through difficult times, when the sun comes out and it just keeps beating down, you know, you grow resilience in that time, and struggle ultimately makes you stronger. It is our scars, it is our hardships in life, and we all have them, let's be honest. Sometimes it's really hard to be vulnerable and to be authentic with those things, just up front with a world that seems to be so interconnected. But when you do put yourself out there and you say, hey, you know what, this is the difficulty I'm facing, I have to embrace it, but I know that this is going to make me stronger on the other side. That's what that song really encompassed. It is about, you know, plants growing out in the field, but that's really just the metaphor of the human heart. And I think even the artwork on that, it took a while to really decide on the artwork. It's a fingerprint tree, so it's a thumbprint that makes up the leaves of a root system, and you'll see that in the image the root system isn't too deep yet. And so with roots, obviously it takes a long period of time for them to grow, and it oftentimes will mirror the top of the plant, you know, under the surface as well. And so you'll see that we were going through this massive transition with COVID, so it felt like everybody had kind of just been like recently transplanted in some way, shape, or form. And then the fingerprint really represented that each one of us on the planet have our own individuality. But at the end of the day, coming through those hardships, through those struggles, you'll ultimately be stronger on the other side, especially as you tap into the community and the voices around you that actually are different. And once again, it just kind of encompassed who the Hunter brothers were, and us being very different people, but coming together on the flip side. And that's what we've done this last year. You know, we've learned things about ourselves that we never knew existed. You know, you have to look through, in the challenging circumstances, you have to look at the lessons that need to be learned in that season, and there can always be that positivity that comes out the other side. And so it's not necessarily that the situations are positive in and of themselves, but it's the fact that they can lead you to something greater. So what's crazy about the song itself is we actually, that song was produced by Hunter Hayes.
Mm-hmm.
And to back up a little bit, it's just kind of a freaky story, because I put in a notebook that I had written out like years ago, like 5 or 6 years ago, Bryton. I wrote in a notebook that I wanted to collaborate with these following artists, and Hunter Hayes was the first person that I had put on that list for some reason at that time. And so I dug that notebook out and found it after we had collaborated with him, and I made a point of calling him and just telling him that. I said, this is super crazy, but this is like, it's like I put that out there and it happened, you know, which is super cool. So I'm a huge advocate of people not giving up on their dreams, that's for sure, because you just never know what can happen. Sometimes you don't even remember what all you've asked for. But my wife Lizzie is she's not the biggest country music fan, I'll be honest. She would be okay with me saying that. But when we first were dating, if you went onto her website, she was a photographer, still is a photographer. It had said that she loved listening to Hunter Hayes, and so the song Tattoo became like the song that threaded us together. I remember after I asked her out, heading home from Airdrie, Alberta, and just being in this state of euphoria where I was like, yeah, like she said yes, and I listened to that song on repeat over and over and over again. So the fact that Hunter Hayes has now played a part in this story just feels like it came full circle. And
no kidding.
So we were recording the song in Nashville in February of last year. We knew that it was going to be the next single. We had already decided that pre-COVID. We're like, we feel like we need a message song. We feel like we need to put something out there that really speaks to the heart of who we are. And that was the song. And we recorded not all the vocals, but we got it started with Hunter when we were in Nashville. And on the last day that we were in Nashville, the day before we left, we also wrote a song called Just Wanted You to Know. Mm-hmm. And I'll just touch on that really quickly too, because I was laying in bed one night. It was the night before the write, and it was the night before the last write in Nashville. And I was feeling off. I was like, something's not okay in my spirit. And Lizzie said to me, she's like, are you doing okay? I was like, no, something's going on. So I rolled over in my bed and I grabbed my phone. And it was like one of those moments where the antenna is up and all the lyrics just downloaded onto my phone in 5 minutes. I wrote a song in 5 minutes. I closed the phone, felt better. I went to bed. I felt that I was burdened, not for myself, but for somebody else. Woke up the next morning and I went back and reread the lyrics, and I was like, hey, they all actually make sense. I didn't know if it would make sense at 11 o'clock at night before, you know? So I looked, I was like, it all makes sense. I went into the writing room, and unbeknown to me, JJ had been noodling around with a melody line on his acoustic guitar 2 days before that ended up being the music for that. Dusty brought in the melody line, and Victoria Banks and Robin Collins helped thread the song into something that was a little bit different from how it was originally written. I still have the original lyrics in my phone that really speak to the heart of you hurting for somebody else, like kind of just the message of empathy. But we wanted to make it more about not just that it would encompass that and be about the person who is in the circumstance hurting, but knowing that like something's off. And as brothers, we feel that we'll feel that something's off with the other brother. And so we wrote that song, recorded the beginning of Hard Dirt, headed back to Canada. I get a Facebook notification 3 days later that Victoria Banks, who wrote on the song Just Wanted You to Know, had a tornado go through her yard, and a tree like crashed on her house. And I listened back to this voice memo of Just Wanted You to Know and listened back to the lyrics, and it was like, we just wrote this with her, and it's like, this could not be more accurate for what is transpiring. And so we didn't know what we were going to do with that song, and we decided, hey, let's put it out, because when COVID happened. And we were like, okay, well, we have this song, we're going to put this out here, not as a single, but we think that it will relate with a lot of people. So we put it out, and the amount of messages that just flooded in of people, you know, saying like, this helped me not commit suicide, this helped me do this helped me this, it was overwhelming. And just knowing that song came from such an authentic place, and that Hard Dirt ended up being the single, which literally speaks to, you know, walking through hardship and struggle and coming out stronger. So the fact that those two songs were the two songs that we released to the world in 2020, I don't think that was a coincidence. I will say that. And so I think that the message of those two songs, it was like, just wanted you to know, was the empathy portion, and Hard Dirt was the hold on to hope portion, and they just worked so well together. And I'm just so grateful. Like, those are the moments. That's the why. Like, if we bring this around to what you're doing this for, and the fact that it's about the why, that right there just encompasses why you do this. You know, it is a very tiresome career. Like, you spend a lot of time away from your family. You love it. You're passionate about the art and the music itself. But underneath that why of connecting with people and helping them take that next step forward and feeling like they're not alone through the gift of music is like, that's a huge part of the why.
That's, you've told me that story before, but it is one of my favorites. It's for anybody who is not a songwriter as well. What's so crazy to me is that you wrote those two songs in like 2 days, or you had just recorded Hard Dirt.
Yeah.
And then, right. So the fact, like, the number of songs that we have in the can that never got recorded, right? Like, it's fascinating how sometimes the ones that just need to come out, and they come out with ease because they needed to. And,
yeah, totally.
Those are the ones that I think are incredibly special, which is amazing.
Something else that Hunter Hayes also said too that I thought was really amazing. We had never had a producer actually sit us all down and go through each brother's passions for music. Had all of us sit down on the couch, and he was like, you know, what were your favorite albums of all time? Who's your favorite artist of all time? And he listened to each one of us talk, and then brought that all together in the production aspect. So that's why I think there was an authenticity in that track in particular that I don't think has ever happened before, because I feel like he was just so in tune with knowing how to pull that out of each of us. And so that was really cool. But something else he said is the threads of all of those songs that you've written, or those pieces that maybe haven't found their place yet, they do have a place in the story. They'll eventually connect. You just might not be able to see it right away. So I have all of these notes where I'm like, that's exactly what happens. You'll all of a sudden have this idea that'll hit you, and it's not a song yet. But then 2 years later, a circumstance happens, and it's like those words will come back to you, and there's a reason as to why it was sitting in your brain 2 years before, is because you were going to walk through an experience that spoke to that, and you were going to live it out. So it's crazy how that happens.
Yeah, no kidding. One of my favorite pieces about interviews is like, and having done a ton of them with radio and everything, is the rapid fire piece. So we're going to get to that in a second. We're going to start to wrap up there.
We're going that way.
We're going to go that way here in a second. But one thing I wanted to touch on before we get there is your social media presence, both as you and the Hunter Brothers account, is one of the most entertaining things to follow ever.
Oh.
And one of my favorite posts that you guys did, and I need to know how this happened, was the Tower of Pianos.
How did I know you were going to say that?
And I mean, you alluded to, obviously every one of you learned piano, but whose idea was it to stack 5 pianos on top of each other? B, how did you do it? And I guess C is why.
Why is because we're idiots. Can I say that? It was probably one of the stupidest things we've ever done. Don't try that at home. But okay, well, we've had a few ideas with pianos, and we used to, in our gospel show back in the day, we had this number where you know, I would go to the piano and I would play, and then a brother would join in, and then they'd kick the other ones off, and we had 3 on at a time. And then eventually it led to all 5 of us playing on the piano at one time. And so we did this for a number of years. We carried that into our country show for a period of time, actually, too. And all 5 of us would be on one piano. So one day we're just sitting in the shop and we're brainstorming over some ideas. And there were some other things that came out of that brainstorm session that I'm not going to say yet because they haven't happened yet. They were maybe a little milder version of the piano. So those were kind of the original ideas. I'm not going to say that yet, but Brock and I have this weird, I don't know, brotherly banter that we go back and forth on. It's just natural. It happens when we're out in the field. Like, we'll take a word that's, you know, that somebody says that maybe they haven't used it in the right context, and then we'll just keep throwing it in as a pun and go back and forth, and we'll do these like little weird things like as brothers. So we're standing up in the shop and we're talking about this piano idea, and Brock all of a sudden gets this look on his face. It was the look, and he was like, I wonder what happened if you put like a piano on top of another piano. No, wait, what if you put 5 pianos on top of each other and had everybody playing them simultaneously? And I was like, yeah, totally. Like, do you want me to,
Yeah.
I just rolled with it. I was like, do you want me to put this out on this site called Shaunavon Observers? Okay, there's a site called Shaunavon Observers, which is my hometown observation site. Need I say more? And I put out this statement that said, does anybody have upright pianos that they would like to give away? And I did this within minutes of the conversation. And I kid you not, Bryton, in like 5 minutes, I had like 18 to 20 responses saying like, I have a piano, come take mine, please come take mine. So I was like, oh, well, apparently this is the question that everybody has been waiting to be asked. Everybody's got pianos that they want to give away in Shaunavon. So we got the guys on the horn. We said, okay, guys, we're going to stack 5 pianos on top of each other. And our work crew here at the farm, Brock all of a sudden started orchestrating the details where he's like, okay, we're going to need this type of lumber. Again, he's brilliant with mechanics. So he's like, we're going to need this type of lumber. We're going to have to go get the flat deck trailer, put this stuff on, and then we're going to do this. Basically came up with the blueprint in the course of a couple minutes. And I started making contacts with all these people in Shaunavon about their upright pianos. And so we took the brothers around town and go start putting pianos in the back of a half ton. And these things are massive, like mammoths. Like they probably weighed like 1,000 to 1,500 pounds.
Oh, upright pianos are crazy.
Yeah, they're crazy, right? Because they're from like way back in the day when things were just made like, you know, so solid. And I got to this one lady's house and she was like, so what are you going to be doing with this? And I was like, do you really want to know? She's like, I don't really care. I was like, okay, well, that's good. I'm like, we're not going to destroy it. But I said, there might be a few screw holes put in the top of it. And she was like, okay. So I didn't go too much further. I said, we're not going to push it off a cliff or anything, but I didn't tell her what we were doing with it. And then we brought them all back to the home yard and started stacking them one on top of the other, with a series of mechanisms, with some tractors, with some lifts, with a crane, and put them all on top of each other, attached them to a wooden backing, and put 5 on top of each other, and then made little platforms, and decided that all of us would play simultaneously, but on different pianos instead of just on one. So we did this little Scottish jig. We have a Scottish heritage, and so we decided to do this little Scottish jig at the same time. And I don't remember exactly how it was decided who would go on the top and who would go on the bottom. I actually think the bottom was probably the most unsafe position. Rock wound up on the top, then Luke, then me, then Dusty, and then JJ. And I distinctly remember like this thing was like kind of swaying a little bit, and Luke starts stomping on the platform above me, and I was like hitting the platform like, stop it, like he was just trying to mess with me. And we get through this thing probably like 4 or 5 times. Had my buddy come and film it and record it.
And it was with the drone and stuff too, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, he actually was in a bucket of a tractor, and he was like being like transferred back like this. And so we just makeshift stuff. We try and come up with new creative ways to do it, because if you don't have the equipment and usually you can't go and rent it in Shaunavon, so you got to come up with your own way of doing it. So
yeah,
come up with some techniques, played 5 pianos at the same time, put it out as a celebration, because I think that year we were nominated for 3 CCMA awards, and so that was our celebration post. And the rest is history. We have more ideas in the bag, and I'm very curious as to how they unfold. Let's say that.
I'm excited. So if you don't already follow the Hunter brothers, you gotta go do it just to see the next crazy thing that they do with pianos.
You'll never know. You never know.
You never know. You never know. Well, we're gonna start to wrap up here, but like I said, this was always my favorite part of interviews, was being put on the spot, having to come up with random answers to random questions, and I had a lot of fun putting these together. I think what's going to happen is I'm just going to answer or ask every guest the same questions, and it's not really rapid fire because they start off pretty rapid, but then they get a little deeper the further you go down. So I'm really excited to hear your answers to these. So are you ready?
Oh, I'm so ready. It hurts. I don't think
Okay.
I slept enough last night, but let's go.
Okay, so the first one's pretty generic. I feel like for podcasts they ask this all the time, but what is one book you feel that everyone should read?
Oh, that's a big question. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey.
Awesome. What is your favorite song?
I would say September by Earth, Wind, and Fire is the first one that hits me. But I'm a
Ooh.
huge Stevie Wonder fan, so there's a lot of his hits that I absolutely love.
I feel like you and Annika could jive on that forever.
Oh, could we
Stevie
ever?
Wonder.
And then I was raised on Motown, so that's
Nice.
what my dad raised me on.
There you go. Salty snack or sweets?
Oh, salty, easy.
Okay, what's your favorite salty snack?
I now really like the spicy dill pickle Miss Vicky's chips is my new favorite.
Interesting.
Yeah, like dangerous.
There you go.
Dangerous, or full plate of broiled nachos at night, just a big old gut bomb, so you feel horrible when you look
Gut
at it.
bomb. I don't
Yeah.
think I've ever heard that term, and I love it.
Yeah, big old garbage gut over here.
There you go. Lazy beach vacation or a crazy travel adventure?
Crazy travel adventure for sure.
Nice. Do you have a favorite destination that you would like to go to in a crazy
I
travel adventure?
really want to go to Cedar Point, which is, I think it has some of the most roller coasters in all the world. I just want to go on roller coasters all day. And then my dad has agreed to take me to Vegas to just go and see shows as a father-son experience, and we haven't
Cool.
done that yet. But that'll be happening hopefully very soon. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Do you have a dream car?
I'm not as much of a vehicle person as most people are. I will admit I would rather get something that has good fuel economy and put my money elsewhere. But I remember going to a Barrett Jackson car show. I think I was more enamored with the fact that Jordan Sparks was on the stage than I was with Chris. I was like a big American Idol fan as a kid growing up,
Yeah.
and so I was standing behind her in an Elephant Ears lineup, and I didn't actually have the audacity to go and talk to her, but I did see a car that I liked. It was called a Lotus Evora.
There you go. There you go. Favorite local small business in your hometown? I feel like it's cheating if you say meeting grounds. So
No,
I'm
I won't. I'll
curious
say
if-
Harvest Eatery. Harvest Eatery.
There you go.
Yeah.
Harvest Eatery. One quote that you live by.
Well, I gave you the poem. I gave you the Been a Minute.
You did.
Been a Minute poem. Sorry, life is just a minute. I gave you that poem. That's definitely one that I live by. I think just like it's very generic, but treat others as you would want to be treated. I think it's kind of that golden rule. Be kind always. There's no reason ever to treat another human being poorly, and so I think I always try to see the best in people, and that's a philosophy I try to live by when I'm behind the coffee counter. My friend who stands behind me, he always whenever I give a compliment to a customer, he tells them that I say that to everybody. And I'm like, I do not. I have to, and it turns into this banter. I won't say something that I don't mean, but I will try and find something to say that's positive.
That's awesome. I love that. So now we're going to get a little bit deeper. Who is someone that you would want to thank for helping you get to where you are today, and why?
Oh, my mom, for sure. Yeah, my mom is like, she's been like a safe place for me. She's the reason that I'm doing music, that I've pursued creativity to the degree I have. I have both of my parents to thank for, different reasons. I have a very, very special place in my heart for her, just because it's like we're just two peas in a pod, and I'm very, very thankful for all the sacrifice, knowing that, she wanted to be an actress. Maybe she still will be. She directed plays and, used her creativity in so many ways, but I feel like she put a lot of it on hold, so that, I can walk in what I am today. And I just, I can't say thank you enough.
That's awesome. Love that. Gotta love the mamas.
Yeah.
And then the last one is, if there was a piece of advice that you could share with your younger self, what would it be?
That is the classic podcast question, isn't it? Got this one down pat by now. I think one of the first things that hits me is go for it. I think there's been a lot of times I have lived a crazy life. Like the amount of things I've been able to experience has been insane, and I'm very, very thankful. There's things that I think I wish I would have stepped out in maybe a little bit sooner. And something that I'm really learning is that indecision makes decisions. And so I think that's something that I would tell my younger self is don't allow indecision to make the decision for you. Because I think then that's where you start allowing regret to creep in. And not that you should necessarily do that. It's just easy to feel that guilt then if you don't actually step out in ways that you wish you would have. And I've been fortunate to be able to do a lot of things. I still go after my dreams pretty fully. But there are things maybe I wish I would have done a little sooner.
It's a great one. That is a great one. Well, like that's rapid fire. You did quite well. Well done.
Thank you. At 1 7-second pause.
Yeah, that's all good. I know that you guys, like, before we wrap up, I know you guys have new music coming out here pretty soon. I know we're recording in June, but this is likely going to go live in July. So I know the music will probably be out already. But maybe give your little spiel on the new music that's coming out, where they can find it, when it's coming out, all that jazz.
Totally. Yeah, we have a new record coming out. It is called Been a Minute, and it is on the heels of our single right now, which is also called Been a Minute. We released one track called Ask Her to Dance already from the project, which is one that means a lot to us. It's all about, I think, just being in the moment of life, and stepping out in courage, and asking your person to dance, because you never know when the song's going to end. And so I think that just being in the moment has been a theme over the last year and a half, and not being able to play shows, not being able to go after things the same way. It's allowed us to really sit back in the pocket of things that really matter at the end of the day. So I think a lot of the songs really speak to that sentiment. There's still lots of fun, up-tempo, classic Hunter Brothers tracks on it. I'm super excited for everybody to hear it. You can go to our website, hunterbrothers.com. You can listen on Spotify, Apple Music, get it on iTunes, Pandora, Google Play, all that fun stuff. And we are very excited to hit the road again and perform all these new songs for everybody. So it's coming soon.
No kidding. That's exciting. Well, Ty, again, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat and connect. And again, like I said, I'm so grateful for our friendship, and to be able to continue that. I'm excited. And we will have to make it out to Shaunavon, Saskatchewan, to finally actually see Meeting Grounds in person and taste that amazing coffee and these sandwiches and these paninis that you keep posting that look so delicious. So
you won't be disappointed.
No, I know. I won't be.
No, the honor is mine. Honestly, I truly, truly mean this from the bottom of my heart. Your friendship has meant so much to me over the last couple of years, but over the last year especially. So thank you for following up and being willing to do this. And I just look forward to whatever the future has in store for you and for everybody moving forward.
Me too. Awesome. Thanks so much, Ty.